Digging deeper and cutting through the noise, this is the podcast that Scottish football needs. Hello and welcome to the Improving Scottish Football podcast. My name is Kieran and this is a special mini episode, this time with commentator Rory Hamilton. Now this is taken from our existing archive of great episodes, and it's basically 15 minutes of Rory hitting the nail on the head when it comes to the changes that we need to see in Scottish football. Now, we've got thousands of Scottish football fans who listen to this podcast. Please reach out if you're interested in sponsoring the podcast or partnering with us in any way. Maybe you could help the podcast grow. Maybe you want to be part of the team. Perhaps you're a coach or a manager or a CEO who would like to be a guest. Please do reach out, whatever it is. improvingscottishfootball@gmail.com, or you can follow me on LinkedIn and you can follow the podcast there as well. We all share the same feelings when it comes to Scottish football, so let's join forces where we can and continue the conversation for change. Please do make sure you're subscribed or follow the podcast, and also leave us a 5-star review if you can. It's the best thing you can do to help the podcast continue to grow. And of course, you can hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. But wherever you are listening or watching, thank you very much. And now that that's all been said, it's over to Rory.
I think for a start, I've listened to most of your podcasts, and I think it's been a really good addition to what is a really well-informed scene. I think the name is perfect because we always have to keep improving. If we don't improve, then we'll stand still or you go backwards because everywhere else is. And in that sense, you can always do better. And I think that Scottish football has got a bit of a mentality to stand still and accept the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we look and we celebrate that we have, in my opinion, the biggest derby in Europe, possibly world football. I mean, it's right up there. Mm-hmm. The Old Firm is right up there, and we should absolutely celebrate that. We should try and promote it as best we can. But at the same time, there's been a sort of acceptance that they have all the power, that I think the other clubs have accepted. And you can understand it when you see the financial outlook that, well, it's been mid-80s since anyone else won the league, that's just what it's going to be.
Mm.
And I think also broadcasters want Celtic and Rangers because that sells the most subscriptions, and that's fair from a business point of view. But what I think that we need to celebrate and encourage competition. The better the league is, the more of an asset it is, the more sellable it is. I mean, imagine if we had Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen locked in a title race.
Mm.
That would be incredible. It would be good for Celtic and Rangers because I think it would drive up their standards. If you sort of play God for a bit, and if you're going to change one thing in Scottish football, I would ditch the 11-1 voting rule.
Yeah,
I've never understood how it got in, how it hasn't disappeared, and how that's a really normal way of making a business decision. I've never liked it. I don't think it should be there.
Yeah. So, how do we bring up the standard of the other teams when obviously Celtic and Rangers are on a different financial level and, always will be miles ahead, purely based on, obviously, capacity of stadiums and the fan bases, etc. Does it require these clubs to come up with new innovative strategies and just take ownership of their own clubs and try and do something a bit different, something a bit unusual, rather than just doing same old stuff? Or does it require something from the top level, something more strategic from the SPFL level, to somehow redistribute things or change the system to bring the whole level up?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're never going to have a level playing field. You know, I don't think anyone's advocating, although I think it would be really exciting for football as a whole if it had an NFL style draft, and the budgets are all the same, would be fascinating. But that's not going to happen football's gone down a business world. Teams are traded on the stock market. It's not possible to do that. I think it would be really interesting if they started that from the very early days, but it's not happening now. There's absolutely no chance. But I think there are ways where you can make it a little bit fairer, because you like competition.
Big time.
Nobody. I remember. You look at that incredible Barcelona team under Pep that used to just pass teams off the park, and they'd have 85% possession, and they'd win every game 5-0. That's incredible to watch once or twice. But I don't want to see teams winning 5-6-0 every week. I would rather watch a 2-2 between two teams that aren't as good as that. So I don't think quality always offers you entertainment. I think competition offers you entertainment. I think we're never going to compete with England financially. Slightly worrying that financially the EFL is growing at a quicker rate than Scotland is. I think then you need to start being innovative and not just accepting what your place is. Doing something different that makes you attractive to investors, to sponsors, to broadcasters, that make them step up and say, "Oh, I like what's going on in Scotland. That's really interesting." They might be more attractive to a broadcaster coming in and maybe looking to try out new things. I think one area where I've always thought that as the sort of finances of England and now the rest of Europe is starting to follow as well, it's the gulf is so vast. If I was looking at Scottish football, I would be thinking, make yourself the most attractive place for a young footballer in the UK to come. Be the Ajax of the UK, so that you're the place that every 17-year-old kid wants to go, because there's a route to the first team. I think there's a real lack of young Scots coming through our academies, and I know the best ones are getting picked off younger and younger to go to not even huge clubs in England, but the setups there are better. Their chances of playing first team football, not great. You see it with Ben Doak. He's an exceptional talent and he will get opportunities, but there are so many others that will go and never see the light of the first team dressing room. I think that's where Scotland is in a good position, because there are good young players, and if you can say to them, there is a pathway, there is a future for you here. I think a lot of them are sold a dream, and the clubs don't necessarily do their utmost to fulfill that. So that's where I think, and that's what fans attach themselves to more than anything else, is a young Scot that has come through. It doesn't mean that the game has to be absolutely full of them, and they get the chance over anyone else. But give them a pathway, an opportunity to get in that first team. It would help the national team. It would help the clubs. And if you do that through quotas, I think is a way of slightly leveling a hugely imbalanced playing field at the moment.
I guess first and foremost, the young player situation and making ourselves a great place for young players to come and learn their trade. I mean, I think that is an absolute no-brainer. And I've had recent chats on the podcast to people in Norway and Croatia, countries that are notorious for literally sticking 16, 17, 18-year-olds in the first teams and, really developing them, and then not being afraid to sell them on to a top 5 league, and that being a clear recognized pathway. And now all these young players, recognize that these countries are places to go. Again, I've mentioned this on the pod before. I think a lot of it does come down to the fact that I think we're still a bit too proud to recognize the fact that we are now a stepping stone nation. Because obviously back in the day, we used to have top world-class players in our leagues, and people would come and have the prime of their career in Scotland, which also then leads on to that point about the gulf between England and Scotland. And it is frustrating because, again, when I was watching Scottish football 20, 25 years ago, the gulf really wasn't that big. Like in 2002, let's say, the conversation was, if Celtic and Rangers went to the English Premiership, would they be in the top 6 in the Premiership? Would they be able to challenge for the title? Now the conversation is, would they even be able to compete, in the Premiership? And we've just fallen so far behind. It's crazy how far we've just stagnated.
If you're not happy with it, go do something about it and make it change. So I think that we need to be the ones that go out and force a change, show what we have that's better than other places. We have some fantastic things about Scottish football, some unbelievable fixtures. And also, the comparison with England is unfair because we're never gonna get to that. I think the comparison that I think's a much better and a more realistic one to look at is Dutch football, the Eredivisie. I think you've got there a league where, you've got traditionally some huge clubs that are going to be bigger and more dominant. Your Ajax, Feyenoord, PSV, but you've also got some pretty serious competition with AZ Alkmaar, with Twente, Utrecht. I would have thought would be a club, Heerenveen, that can probably throw up some big results, who are also clubs that are selling at a market level above our clubs. They're dealing in different markets. So your top branch, your Ajaxes, there's a respect for their league that is bigger than the respect for the Scottish leagues. They're selling at the 80, 60, 40 million mark. We've not gone above 25. They're buying then from the sort of 15 to 20 million mark, whereas we're sort of 5 million for your Celtic and Rangers is a big splash, and that continues as you go down. AZ are selling players for 20, whereas maybe an Aberdeen are selling for 2. And I think the Netherlands is a fairer comparison, where they have got some pretty good competition in their league. I think they've become a really attractive league to broadcasters. They've tried to do their own thing with their own channel, where they had every game broadcast on TV every week, which I know fans love their 3 o'clocks, but the modern game, if you want to stay a part of the bandwagon, then I'm sorry, you need to make a few sacrifices. And if games get moved for TV, I think they have to be fairly done by the leagues. I don't think you should have people traveling the full length of the country on a Sunday night. But you look at every other league in the world, and the games are spread out over a weekend. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's what we should do. And I think you need to make yourself as attractive to those companies, be it broadcasters, that are coming in to invest in your product, not just to buy it, but to invest in it and help it be as attractive a prospect as possible.